All right, welcome back to another video from the 5th round of the North American Youth Championships. For my favorite game of the girls section, I decided to go for this one between Jingyao Yang and Chloe Wang. The reason I chose this game is to remind everyone that you always have to be on the look for your opponent's threats. The game started in, a natural way with a Scotch, with this line with knight f6. I personally enjoy this bishop c5 line for black, but knight f6 is just as good. Knight takes c6, b takes c6, e5, and queen e7. The idea is, of course, to pin the pawn, and then the queen doesn't stay there. Of course, normally it's not a great idea to put the queen in front of a bishop. The queen does go to e6 later to free up the bishop, but we're playing this in order to be able to get the queen out of there too. Otherwise, the queen will be stuck. In addition, white is kind of forced in a way to play queen e2 as well to threaten the knight 2, and they block the bishop also. So it's not just one bishop that's blocked, both sides block their bishop. And now h4. Now, personally, I haven't kept up with the theory here. I used to play this line with black for a while, but I was told in the chat that h4 is the new line for white in these positions. To my knowledge, this was the main thing, and then there was bishop a6, followed by b3, and then white was kind of putting the bishop here, bringing the knight to e4, sometimes having ideas with knight f6. But I was told by the chat, and I will check later as well, just to make sure, hopefully, that h4 is the new main line kind of for white in order to try to get more pressure. Now, queen e6 to free up the bishop, knight e2 with the idea, knight e4, a5 to put the bishop in a6, and white continues the development. Everything seems normal so far, and each time you see a new move being played, you see some square highlighted, obviously showing the threats that the other side is prepping for. Knight f3, queen g6, and now the move h5. Now, white is definitely gaining more space on the king side, but what they have to be mindful about is make sure that they get to develop too. I did not check for this move, but I believe if that were to happen, simply king d1, and with the queen and the knight being hanging, black just loses a piece. So you cannot afford to make an in-between move. Therefore, Chloe played the move queen c2, which obviously invites the trade of the queens, but that leads to a pretty big loss in material for white. So you cannot do that. So queen c2 is kind of sneaky in a way because it keeps this queen here under attack. So, even a move like bishop g2, you got to be mindful because we have either knight d3 or trades here, and then this pawn is hanging, or like I said, knight d3 as an idea, bishop takes c4 as another idea, where black keeps, black definitely has pressure, right? So you have to be mindful with white in this position what you do. And since this is the biggest issue at the moment, white found this beautiful move, which kind of gives the idea of pushing the h-pawn, rook h4. And in this moment, Chloe played a development move that seems so natural, and it seems threat-free, bishop c5. But you should never underestimate your opponent's threats. With bishop c5, black actually has a threat. It puts pressure on f2. With all of these pressures that exist in this position, you definitely need to be super mindful here with white. So bishop e3 is probably the move that white should have played. Just trade that bishop, trade the queens, go towards an endgame where you have quite some chances to have an okay position. So we take with the king, we move the king to the side, and this knight has to be saved somehow. Probably black would play some c5 to retreat to the knight, and the position is playable. That's it. But in this position, white felt that this knight is trapped. Probably white felt that in this position, she could be close to winning. Who knows? I'm not sure. But she ended up playing this move, a3. You guys can try to stop the video and figure out how can black win here. The knight is of course not trapped. The correct move here for black is knight d3, after which white can resign because you got no place to move the king. You need to take the knight with the queen, and once you do that, you're gonna fall for this beautiful bishop takes f2 checkmate. There was a very serious threat after bishop c5, and while white unfortunately failed to see it. Always look for your opponent's threats, never underestimate them. Hopefully this was a good lesson for you, and looking forward for another one.